right bank slams you into your seat, the harness straining under intense forces. Your head, which normally weighs 20 pounds, now feels like a 160-pound weight, crushing you down as you push your aircraft close to its maximum G-load. You battle for every breath, your chest muscles working 8 times harder than normal. Your pressure suit is the only thing stopping you from blacking out. The edges of your vision blur, closing in like a tunnel. If you don't recover in the next few seconds, it's game over. But that risky maneuver just saved you from being blown out of the sky by one of the best fighter pilots on the planet, a U.S. Navy Top Gun instructor. Now, if you can keep your stomach in check and avoid becoming a fireball on the desert floor below, you might just earn a shot at becoming a Top Gun ace yourself. On today's episode of The Infographics Show, a day in the life of a Top Gun pilot. It's time to wake up. You're not here on holiday. Not that there'd be anywhere to visit at Naval Air Station Fallon out in the Nevada desert. You're hundreds of miles from Las Vegas, and just about anywhere else worth visiting. But it's the perfect location for some of the most aggressive fighter jet training you'll receive in your life. No one's here to yell at you to wake you up or hurry you to class. You're here because you want to be, and at this point in your career, you've already distinguished yourself as a competent pilot. More than that, though, you've proven you're reliable and have strong leadership qualities. Top Gun isn't about making fighter aces, even if the number of graduates who went on to become aces has been historically greater than the rest of the Navy. You're here not just to learn how to take on the most advanced air threats any adversary in the world could throw at you. You're here to go back to your home unit and teach them to do the same. That's the secret to Top Gun's success. It's a training program to create trainers. But first, it's time for some PT. Again, this isn't basic training or the academy. Nobody's here to yell at you to work out. You do PT because your career and your life depends on it. If you're not fit enough to handle the extreme G-forces associated with flying the most high-performance combat jets anywhere in the world, then you have no place in America's Naval Air Forces. Worse, it could cost you your life. If you want to get fat and fly planes poorly, try joining the Russian Air Force. After PT and a quick shower, you score yourself some chow. It's hard not to be excited walking up to your first class. Every day you're at Top Gun, you get to fly your aircraft. Sometimes you'll even fly twice a day depending on the training scenario. Back in the real Navy, American pilots still have a very strong flight hour record, but well short of the estimated 200 flight hours per year needed to maintain an elite skill level. This is offset heavily by the use of simulators, but any pilot will tell you there is nothing like being in the seat of a real fighter jet. But you've got a ways to go before hopping into the cockpit. Top Gun isn't about fighter tactics. Its curriculum is meant to make you an expert in your aircraft, its weapon systems, and aviation in general. This means you'll be taking classes on meteorology, flight dynamics, each and every single weapon your F-18 fighter might be called upon to employ, and you'll learn just about every single nut and bolt and where it fits on the standard Super Hornet. If you think you can skimp on the book knowledge, think again. Back when Top Gun was first established, there was less focus on weapon systems, given the relatively primitive air-to-air technology of the time. But today's fighter aircraft are more advanced than ever, flying supercomputers employing cutting-edge technology that can be a generation or more ahead of what civilians enjoy. You've seen some of that technology at work, though, because you were part of a team of growlers that escorted Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan in 2022. It was an extremely risky but bold political move that showed China the U.S. would not be intimidated by its threats. There was always the risk of a violent confrontation with Chinese military forces, but you were part of deploying an electronic warfare campaign so intense that China couldn't track Pelosi's aircraft just over 100 miles off its own shores. The incident terrified the Chinese and sent alarm bells ringing throughout their military, spurring a surge to modernize and harden against electronic warfare. Your expertise is why you're here. But at Top Gun, you'll learn how to use every single system on the F-18, even better than before. Besides, even the old-timers with relatively primitive air-to-air missiles and still heavily using guns and dogfights placed a lot of emphasis on learning the ins and outs of their weapon systems, a tradition going back to World War II aces. You're not just here to learn, though, because the Navy always wants your unique point of view and expertise. Having been on Speaker Pelosi's wing, you were at the front lines of a possible war with China in the Pacific, and your Top Gun instructors are eager to hear what you may have learned from being in such a position. The emphasis of your classes is more than weapons and technical knowledge, though. Tensions in the Pacific are rising as China seeks to challenge the US-led liberal world order. And what you learn and teach others here might end up saving lives, maybe even winning or losing a war. But at some point, it's time to kick the tires and light the fires because Top Gun is a practical, hands-on school. Your F-18 is a beautiful piece of machinery. Pound for pound, it's one of the greatest aircraft God ever allowed to fly in his wild blue skies. The successor to the legendary F-14 Tomcat, the F-18 may be getting demoted from frontline duty because of increasingly lethal air defenses requiring stealth aircraft to tackle. But once the F-35s have punched a hole in enemy defenses, it's the Super Hornets who are going to do the brawling. And your F-18 is built to fight with an impressive thrust-to-weight ratio that would make Newton spin in his grave and excellent maneuverability. It's good that you're flying one of the best combat jets in the world, because you're going up against the F-16, basically a bargain bin fighter jet built to be as cheap as possible, and it's going to mop the floor with you. The F-16 came out of a weird idea. What if fighter jets were inherently unstable on purpose? Prior to fly-by-wire computer-assisted flight systems, it would have never worked, at least not for long. But its avionics and inherent instability allow the F-16 to be as nimble as a cat and absolutely terrifying in close-range dogfighting. Your beefy F-18 has better nose authority, letting you stay locked on the F-16 easier, but the Viper is nimble enough to easily outrun you. In most scenarios, it's best to catch a nimble fighter jet like the F-16 at a distance with room to maneuver, which is exactly why, in this scenario, your instructor decided to ambush you with 2 adversary F-16s springing up from the dirt below you. The entire point is to put you at a disadvantage, and you're fighting for your life. There's no real gun or missile here. It's all simulated, but it's simulated extremely well. A kill here means a kill in a real fight. And while it's unlikely you'd ever be facing off against an F-16, the jet was chosen to be an adversary aircraft because it can readily mimic the flight characteristics of some real light fighters you might run into in the Russian arsenal. You gotta keep your nose on the aggressor F-16 that you've got in front while avoiding getting boxed in by the one behind you. Most of all, you gotta avoid a turning fight because you'll bleed off more energy and take longer to recover than the F-16. It's an unfair fight in an unfair situation, and it's meant to be. Just like F-35s being forced to fight at close quarters in Air Force red flag exercises, the entire point is to put you and your jet in the most disadvantageous position possible. Only here at the very edge can you really learn. You get swatted time and time again. It's only when you finally land on the ground that you realize it was never meant to be a winnable scenario. But you weren't being set up to fail, nor were your instructors picking on you. You were being put in an extreme and high-stress situation where you could best learn the limits of both yourself and your aircraft, along with its weapons. In the real world, you'd have a wingman, and the odds of an enemy fighter getting that close without being detected are slim to none, especially because you'd be flying alongside a host of support aircraft, scanning for enemy targets, or ready to come to your aid. But here, you get pushed to the absolute limits. Your head is pounding. Pilots gain G-tolerance the longer and longer they fly, and being in shape is a big help. But pushing your body to its very physical limits still takes a toll. Combat fighter jets have effectively reached the physical human limit of capability. There's room to fly a lot faster, but there's barely any room to turn tighter or accelerate faster. The human body simply cannot tolerate the forces involved, which is why Collaborative Combat Aircraft, or CCAs, will soon join both the Navy and Air Force in the thousands. These cheap, disposable combat aircraft will be stealthy and loyal AI-powered wingmen, which will fly in formation with you. They're meant to be attritable, so as to draw out enemy reserves of munitions, while posing an extremely potent threat to enemy aircraft and air defenses, while the human remains safely out of range. Seeing the threat posed by ever-advancing adversary air defenses, the U.S. military is taking a step back in time with plans to field thousands upon thousands of combat aircraft again like it did in World War II, but only a fraction of these will be manned. That's why a lot of the technical knowledge you pick up at Top Gun is so critical, and why the program has become about more than just teaching combat maneuvers. But you might still have to defend yourself, and CCAs aren't set to join the Navy for years yet. Right now, the fate of the Pacific and maybe the current US-led liberal world order rests heavy on the shoulders of naval aviators like you, who will be on the front line from hour zero of the fight. You're trying to make an impression, though, because you know for a fact that agencies other than the Navy can take a keen interest in Top Gun graduates. You've heard the rumors, and the program is all but officially announced with a flight technology demonstrator already having flown. It's the SR-72, the son of Blackbird, the fastest manned aircraft ever to tear across the skies. Only son of Blackbird will go much faster than its father, the SR-71, rumored to hit as much as Mach 10, potentially even higher, while remaining maneuverable. The SR-72 program is already looking for only the absolute best aviators in the entire US military to fly what'll be the most high-performance aircraft ever built. It's a spy plane for an age where satellites may no longer be reliable, but it'll also be able to carry out a strike roll, roaring through the skies faster than any air-to-air missile to put bombs directly where it'll hurt the enemy the most. But only the best will be able to fly it, and you're here to prove you've got what it takes. Now go check out What If a Single F-22 Time Traveled to World War I, or click this other video instead.